The year was 1187, and the sun over Jerusalem burned like a relentless torch in the sky, casting long shadows over a city that had fallen. The Holy Sepulchre, the heart of Christendom, was no longer under the cross. It belonged to Saladin now. The crescent moon rose where the banner of the lion once stood. It could not go unanswered. The cry for war echoed across Europe. The Pope's call rang through the halls of kings and nobles, demanding warriors to reclaim what was lost. Rulers hesitated, uncertain of the cost, the risk, the blood it would take. But one man did not hesitate. He did not weigh the cost. He only heard the call and answered it with steel and fire. Richard Plantagenet, the LionHeart, born to Henry II of England and Eleanor of Aquitaine, Richard was not made for courts or whispers in candlelit chambers. While his brothers schemed and plotted in the shadows, Richard sharpened his sword. He was forged in battle, raised in the din of war. From his youth, he was called Coeur de Lion, the LionHeart, not for mere bravado, but because he was a beast among men, a warrior whose fury was unmatched. And so, when the holy city fell, when Christendom wailed in sorrow, Richard did not pray. He did not weep. He prepared for war. His ships sliced through the sea, carrying an army that was less of an army and more of a storm of steel and vengeance. When they landed upon the shores of the Levant, there was no pause, no waiting for diplomacy. Richard unleashed the full might of his wrath. At Acre, he made the world remember his name. The city trembled beneath his onslaught. He fought like a man possessed, his blade an extension of his fury. His men, inspired by the sheer force of his will, stormed the walls, crushed the resistance. When it fell, Richard did not bask in victory. There was still a price to be paid. The Saracens delayed in their ransom, and Richard's patience was as thin as a razor's edge. 3,000 prisoners, men, warriors, souls who had seen the face of battle, fell under his command. The earth ran red with their blood. His wrath was as unyielding as his blade. Saladin, the great sultan, had never feared a man. Until now. At Arsuf, the desert wind carried the sounds of war, the clash of steel, the cries of men. Saladin's cavalry, swift as lightning, struck hard, their hooves kicking up the dust of the battlefield. They had broken countless armies before. They had shattered countless ranks. But Richard did not break. He did not shatter. He stood, patient, waiting for the perfect moment. And when it came, the lion roared. The charge of the Crusaders thundered across the battlefield. The ground shook beneath their war horses. Richard led them, cutting down foes as though he were reaping wheat. His sword flashed like judgment itself, his armor drenched in the blood of those who stood against him. And for the first time, Saladin did what he had never done before. He retreated. Richard's name spread through the land like wildfire. Even his enemies whispered it with something close to reverence. One Saracen emir called him a mutilator of men, something beyond human, a force that could not be reckoned with. Another, shaking his head, admitted, "No one can stand against him. No one who faces his sword walks away whole." Even Saladin's own warriors, men who had seen battle beyond counting, trembled at the mere mention of his name. The Sultan, furious, demanded, "Where are the men who will bring me Melek Richard in chains?" His commanders could only lower their eyes. No one can withstand his charge and live. For years, Richard waged war. He stood on the edge of history, a king unlike any other, a warrior who fought not from behind a wall of men but at the very front, his sword swinging, his enemies falling like chaff before the wind. But even the mightiest lion must one day fall. It was not on the battlefield, not in the heat of a glorious war, that fate claimed him. It was an arrow, a nameless archer, a minor skirmish in an insignificant siege. The shaft struck him, and though he pulled it free, infection crept through his body like a slow poison. Even in death, his fire did not wane. He forgave the archer. He did not beg, did not curse the heavens, did not rage against the end. He had lived as a warrior, and now he would die as one. His name would be etched into the stones of history, sung in the halls of kings, feared in the prayers of his enemies. Richard the Lionheart, a blade in God's hand, a king of war, a force of nature, and though centuries have passed, his name has never faded. It is still spoken, still remembered, still whispered in awe. For some men are born to rule, others are born to fight. But Richard was born to conquer.